Well, let's do the big issues. Let's look at the newspapers. The Daily Graphic has on the front page at 74th New Year School, take lead role in AFTA. Vice President challenges Ghanaian enterprises. And we know that the New Year School is always one of the best, I'll have to call it institutions, even though it's a forum, where we tend to get highlights of good policy initiatives for which sometimes governments of the day tend to buy in through their various policy decisions that are implemented by various ministries, departments, and agencies. Up there we have mixed reactions, greet new utility tariffs, public want government to intervene, and then PAC, the Public Account Committee, chides Sports Authority boss over duties. And those are the stories. On the back page, boss has donated 100,000 SI's books to school children. We know that it's a new school year, so that's what it is. Pastor businessman caged 8 years for fraud. And we're told that the pastor is Reverend Edward Boabing. He is the head pastor of the Liberty Vineyard International Ministries, Dansuman. Liberty Vineyard. I love the names of Vineyard. I'm sure Vineyard from the Bible. Vineyard. Ghanaian Times has on the front page, couple takes 37 military hospital to tax missing twin. I guess they have to speak to lawyer Ma'am Hesse. Looks at negligence in the medical field, medical negligence, etc. Ghana committed to implementation or after the vice president, and ACTA is one of the. I have to commend the vice president for this as well, because we need to reiterate this point that this is an initiative that covers a sub-region, and we need to take advantage of it. And I think that the government is doing so well, led by the vice president, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who's also head of the economic management team of government. Nationality won't count in selection of new Black Stars coach, sports minister, and illegal structures at Mimpasem, Racedown, Mimpasem, near Ghana, I believe. Yeah, illegal. Hey, some of them are plush buildings. So, a Daily Guide has on the front page Nana Wo's Abu Dhabi investors. He's there alongside 6 other ministers with their entourage, and that's a great one. And we featured it on the news as well. The Bank of Ghana allays gold for oil policy fears. There are no fears at all. Court to decide ex-Maslock boss fate. I've not committed any crime. Kusi Boateng will tell you the details of that release as well, as we discussed that with our guest this morning. On the front page of the Business and Financial Times, we do have government allocating 660 million Ghana cedis to the planting for food and jobs this year. 60 million Ghana cedis this year. And then we have minority MPs kick against DDEP, says it threatens banks' insurance survival. We're talking about the domestic debt exchange program. And then also on the front page, swift resolution of lingering DDEP will boost investor decision making. Okay, so we have the vice president of GSLA, Ghana Media, and the use of. And then we have the Daily Analyst, Cathedral Bruhaha. I'm ready to face a Blackwash Raj. And then he also said in that statement, he will face him for making defamatory comments and statements. And so that's how the defamation suits tend to go. For all media houses, and usually they go for the notable ones that also did the broadcasts. You'll also be attached as well. So we have to be waiting and see which of the media houses will be attached. So the new publisher, Bishop Dag walks away over unseen hands in red, unseen hands. Controlling National Cathedral cash. Kufuor sells Ghana as best place to do investment, and he is in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi is one of the Emirates, in the Emirates, one of the kingdoms in the Emirates. Abu Dhabi, we have Fujairah, Charlie, great place, they're beautiful. Everybody knows Dubai, but Abu Dhabi is also beautiful. And then we have majority group oppose Oforiate's DDE haircuts. majority group. We'll discuss that as well. Used car sellers beg Yoko over stolen cars. Yeah, some of my friends say their cars have been seized as well, so we'll see how that goes. But there's a good reason why Yoko is on the heels of that. The custodian is there, and I have to say good morning to the managing news editor, Awudu, and Awudu Mahama. Good morning to you. It's been a while that we've talked. I'll call you after the show. PAC, that's the Public Account Committee, speak for announced expose victim. And the caretaker trade minister, Jinapo, starts work. That was a good one to see. Government empowering enterprises. And Dr. Mahmoud Baumia was at the New Year school. And we'll have to look at the other newspapers that we have as well. But, you know, it's been good insights to all the things that we have. So let us have them. The last one we have is the back group marking first anniversary, and the textbook won't teach you gold for crude initiative by Omia touts. Yeah, true. It's an initiative. We're told it's novel, but we'll see how that goes. I'm just look at my guest this morning. I have here with me former Member of Parliament for Tema East constituency, former Deputy Minister for Transport, and Daniel Nikwate, Titus Glover. Good morning to you. Yeah, I've seen that you're in full regalia. Are you going for war? The thing on your hand, what does it signify?
It says that when you wear smoke.
Yeah, but you have something also on your hand.
I'm a chief.
Okay, all right.
I'm a chief in Sankana.
Okay.
In Upper West Region.
Okay.
I'm a chief within the Daguma community in Tema. I'm Dan Taliga, then the chief in Mampon Clubbing. I'm going for a traditional council meeting. I'm not going for war.
That's about.
Nah, it's my son.
I wish I knew more, Charlie. Like I would have disgraced you in quotes this morning, but I can't go further. And one person who speaks Dagbani very well is Malik Basentali, Deputy National Communications Officer for the NDC. That's about.
Nah.
Okay. How are you?
I'm great.
Yeah, great. And Honorable Titus Glover, we also do have on the stream Justice Abdullah. He's a legal practitioner.
I love this man.
You love him. He teaches the law at
teaches.
the Faculty of UPSA Law.
Good
morning to you.
I'll be in his class.
One day you'll be in his class.
Yes.
That's great. Please treat him fairly. Justice Abdullah, when he comes to your class. Good morning to you, sir.
Shout out to you. I'm deeply grateful for the kind words.
Yes.
Honorable Titus.
Okay, great.
God bless you.
All right.
God bless you. Thank you so much for the kind words.
He said he's looking forward to you.
Yes, I will.
The law lecturers, they are nice outside, though. They'll drill you. They're only nice outside, I'm telling you. They'll drill you. Friendship aside, they'll drill you.
It's part of the training.
It's part of the training, then. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it's great. It's great. You're a great politician, I have to admit. Great politician, Titus Glover. Now, we have to start on the circus that has been surrounding the National Cathedral. And Malik Basentali, let me first go with you. There's been a statement that has been released by the revered Reverend Victor Kusibwating. And you have to say that he says he's ready to look at the case that Mr. Ablakwa has put before SHRAJ. That's the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice. And admittedly, I have to say that he will have a case to answer. But outside the remit of all that, a lot has been happening about Heward-Mills, who is a key person within the Secretariat, also resigning, etc. What do you have to say in the first place?
Well, Roland, good morning to you. Good morning to my very brother, Mr. Titus Glover. Good morning to your cherished viewers out there. I have gone through the statement as released by Reverend Victor Kusi Boateng, in other jurisdictions known as Kobna Edu Jemfi. And I've read the entire piece. Gone detailed through it. Admittedly, there's not a single portion where he addressed the very issues raised by the Honorable Okujato Ablakwa. And I've read it repeatedly. Not a single paragraph addresses the issues as put across by Honorable Okujato Ablakwa. Because if you read this said document, there is no way it states emphatically that a single claim put out there by Honorable Okujato Ablakwa is false or is nothing to hold on to.
But the case is before Shraj.
You go, no, he's attempting to sue. He knew it was before Shraj, but he's also attempting to sue. I mean, if you read the first paragraph, he speaks of a narrative being twisted and the exact story not being put out there. But if a narrative is being twisted, all you've got to do in your release is to state emphatically, I mean, exactly where a narrative has been twisted against, I mean, your image.
Okay, so you're speaking, this is outside the issue before Shraj.
Of course.
Okay.
Mr. Okujato Ablakwa has stated emphatically that you've been indicted for corrupt practices, that there's an iota of conflict of interest, and on the backs of that, he invokes Article 218 of the 1992 Constitution. And he's also stated that you have misrepresented your identity on another document, and in other terms, you have been able to generate more than one tax identification number, which of course is unacceptable to the systems of this country. So many issues against your person. And then you come to respond and say, one,
but he's supposed to respond before Shraj.
Has been, yes, he will respond. That he will not escape. But I mean, in your release, just as you've made the public aware that you intend suing Honorable Okujato Ablakwa, you should have done us a great service by also explaining yourself, I mean, in one fold. I have gone through the entire document. And first of all, Roland, you would agree with me that to own two passports, where one bears the name Kusi Boateng, and another bears the name Victor Kusi Boateng, and another bears the name Kobna Edu Jemfi, is criminal to the laws of this land. And surprisingly, going into details, all these two passports have been active in the last years of this country. Because in one instance, he managed to travel with a diplomatic passport to Dubai. And 2 months after, he traveled with his ordinary passport to same Dubai.
Which name was
he
the
used
passport then?
The diplomatic one of Reverend Kusi Boateng.
Oh, okay.
And the so-called ordinary one of Kobna Edu Jemfi to same Dubai. And we find it worrying. I mean, what would you have been carrying as a diplomat? That in one breath you decide to go as a diplomat, and in another breath you decide to go as an ordinary citizen. Mr. Okujato Ablakwa has also raised concerns about the fact that a whooping $2.6 million has been paid to your company, JNS Talent and Skills Enterprise. And from our checks, that company was incorporated to only run a crèche at Dewenya.
What do you mean by a crèche?
A crèche, kindergarten.
If you look at the business,
I mean, if you look at the business history of that firm, they only own a crèche at Dewenya with about 10 students or so. That is if they are still active in class. Crèche, $2.6 million has been paid to it. Then, when that matter was brought to the public domain, you have the National Secretariat, headed by Dr. Paul Opoku-Mensah, issuing a statement to state that TNS had given them a loan of $2.6 million. And so, whatever mobilization they had stated in their documents to parliaments that they had paid to JNS was simply a refund of their documentation. But you see, Roland, critically, every institution has a board it's accountable to. At least if you are not even accountable to with the indigents of this country. There's a board of trustees that was set up. And it is for no reason that you have a renowned man of God like Reverend Heward-Mills resigning and stating clearly that the whole system around the National Cathedral has not been transparent. And he's raised issues about financial challenges. He's raised issues about questions. He's asked the Secretariat, and yet no one has been able to provide a single answer to him. Then, a board that was constituted by revered men of God to take very critical decisions like this have no knowledge about JNS lending money to pay a contractor.
Are you saying
in this whole
this
National
due to the
issue.
narrative or the letter by Heward-Mills?
I'm stating this, first of all, due to the facts available as presented by Honorable Okujato Ablakwa. And the statement as released or has cited from that Heward-Mills, because clearly the man stated, that the government was taking decisions outside the board of trustees that were appointed to man the affairs of this so-called Cathedral matter. And you see, Roland, if you take a critical look of this whole issue being debated in the public domain, it has to do with our taxes and what we intend using our monies to do for the citizens of this country. We are spending over $400 million in constructing what we still do not know, whether it's a spiritual home or a revenue mobilization.
I don't understand. You haven't gotten an explanation from government, especially the president, about why the National Cathedral is being built and what it's supposed to be meant for. It's supposed to mean and also be a symbol of representation for how far God has brought us within a region of turmoil. I'm talking about West Africa. Yes. You heard the president.
Yes, so you are still speaking of the intention of Mr. Akufo-Addo before election 2016. That was exactly what he told us, that upon assumption of office, he would build a cathedral to the glorification of God. And that was the deal he had with the Most High God after assumption of office. First of all, what sought to be your personal pledge and promise to the Most High finally became something that the entire citizenry are being pleaded or are being forced to contribute towards its establishment. Secondly, what you made the Most High God believe that you were going to build to his glorification has gradually become an so-called event center. Because if you've listened to their further explanations to this matter, they are stating that all avenues, all enterprises, all jurisdictions can hold programs in the National Cathedral. And they have stated emphatically that that is going to be a revenue mobilization avenue for the country. I don't see any spiritual home that uses the house of God to mobilize revenue for the people of this country. And so, even in a morality test, Mr. Akufo-Addo clearly deceived the Most High God. But I'm stating that if you intend spending $400 million on a project like the National Cathedral, at the detriment of people still standing under trees, at the detriment of people still giving birth in plastic chairs. Look, Roland, let me avert our minds to the fact that President Mahama was availed to $110 million in an African Development Bank loan. He decided to construct the Fufoloso Solar Road. Today, that road alone has saved more than 10,000 lives and continues to save lives on a daily basis because of the number of accidents that were recorded pre the construction of the road and post-construction of the road. There's been a decline, significant one. I am from that part of the country. So President Mahama invested about 10% of that $400 million today the government is using. And look, $130 million has already been paid to the architect, Ejaye, of this whole National Cathedral Bruha. Cedis. Same 130 million cedis is being needed to finally complete the Eastern Corridor Road. Yet the government of the day says they don't have money. Today, the dollar is depreciating because our exports versus our imports do not tally. And that is because the number of companies that generate things to the taste of the foreign, nationals, have not met the number of things that we need from them. And an example was when President Mahama used 85 million euros to construct a BP share nut factory. The first exportation brought us over 25 million. Imagine breaking down $400 million into constructing many more share nut factories in this country. Well, and avert your mind to the number of people they will be employing and the revenue generation corridor for this government. President Mahama used $250 million to construct the Tema, the Kotoka, Temna 3, $250 million. Today, you would agree with me that even foreign nationals come here to take photo shoots in our Temna 3. And as to the number of people is employed, more than 10,000.
Are you talking about the few Nigerians who do that? What do you mean by foreign nationals?
Even if it is one Nigerian, they give credit to it. And even if it is one Ghanaian that uses it to travel, at least he travels in comfort. And the government makes money from whatever he pays at the airport. $250 million. That amount of money, $400 million, could have generated more than 3 of such airports in this country. President Mahama used about $85 million to construct the Pokwasi interchange. Which means that $400 million could have constructed more than 10 of such interchanges in this country. And so what is worrying is how this avenue has been used as a corridor of corruption, as a corridor of conflict of interest. And an example is that the whole National Cathedral, which today has become a galamsey pit, because when you go there on a drone view, it looks like a galamsey pit, is being insured by Enterprise Insurance, which is partly owned by Mr. Ken Ofurata, the finance minister. That is a clear point of conflict of interest. And so, in this whole brouhaha, I am convinced that, you see, the morality ratio of this whole enterprise has been soiled, has been thrown to the dogs, have been tattered, and there should be an immediate resignation of members on this board of trustees. Because, you see, there are other very diligent, and I have stated, Roland, that, look, it is not a crime for any man of God to agree to be part of any board that seeks to build anything in glorification of his religion or in glorification of God. So the first intention of the president brought all these people on board. But after some time, no transparency, people are using it for chop. And I believe strongly that we would get to the bottom of this matter, and people will surely stand trial and accountable to all their crimes and woes in this particular deal.
The reality is that in law, when there are issues, you also need to hear the other side. And I believe that it's within that context that Reverend Kusi Boateng has issued that statement. And I believe he's going to face trial so that he's able to also address some of the key issues. But on the sidelines, the public opinion regarding what Mr. Okudzeto has come out with about double identities. But even recently, you take a look at just overnight, the now public known resignation of Heward-Mills and how that also affects the buy-in for ordinary citizens from this project.
Precisely so. Precisely so. And good morning to your viewers and your good self and my young brother here. From the way he spoke, you can see and conclude that the NDC are solely behind Okudzeto Ablakwa for the so-called his expose or whatever he has come out with, including JD himself. Because the tangent at which is going, I see this as purely populist.
You think it's political?
It's politics, populist, sensational, and recklessness.
And how do you come by that?
I'm coming there. You see, it takes a lot of time for people to build their personalities. Young, brilliant presentation here, coming up politically. If somebody gets up one day and start attacking the personality of Basintale, without having the grounds to even come to him, that look, Basintale, I've heard that you have done A, B, C, D, E. And the person go routes, attacking you, destroying you, I mean, all kinds of things. How will you feel? I have an NDC communication officer in Tema East, a good friend of mine. He has insulted me on social media. Seriously, very damaging. It took pain for me to hold me for the High Court in Tema. Adekoka, Akamba, my good friend, Otokuno, my good friend, and my senior, Tetechai, all pleaded with me that please, Nikwate, let go, forgive him. And I tell them, so
you mean they have to intervene?
Yes. So I forwarded these attacks on me.
How does they relate to this?
I'm coming. When you build your reputation, and somebody will just come out and start attacking you, impugning corruption, before you are even proof that you've committed corruption, you can imagine what Kusi Boateng's children are going through in the schools. And you know the kind of politics we do in this country. So for me, I am very careful. Now, the issue about multiple identities. I'm told in the Akan tradition, when you are giving birth, you are giving names. But as you grow up, you have the liberty and the opportunity to have your own identity, and you change. So you can have Edu Jemfi, and you can have Kusi Boateng from birth, okay? But when you are changing your your identity and the acquisition of a passport, there are three things that you need: your birth certificate, your affidavit that you swear, and the gazetting of the affidavit before they go ahead and issue the passport to you. There is a ruling by the Supreme Court on this very matter of the identity of Reverend Kusi Boateng. And I will urge my brother to go and look for this. I've told my brother Eduji, who is a lawyer to Okujetu in this brouhaha, is a case of Kofi Sapon versus Franklin Jantua, suit number J4/15/2015. And with your permission, I read. The Tri-Court also considered that it is not illegal for any person to acquire property in his native name. The Court of Appeal considered this and concluded it did not violate any law unless there was proof that it was done with a criminal purpose. It is common knowledge that among the accounts, emphasis, the name that is given at birth is often not the same name that the person carries, especially when he goes to church and is baptized with a Christian name, or the name that he carries into school. Meanwhile, back home, he is commonly known and called by his native name given at birth. Thus, it will not surprise anybody if such person acquire property in the native name. It is an age-old practice, quote and unquote. This is a Supreme Court ruling on the same, what they call it, Edu Jemfi and Kusi Boateng. From birth, there are mates of his back in the village, in the time where he was born. They would still like to call him by the name Kusi Boateng. But growing up, he has this Edu Jemfi name now changed. Do you understand? So the court is telling us that even if you acquire property in the old name, positively, would that he has not committed any crime to that. So I don't see where my NDC friends are coming from. That because
you think they're up to mischief?
Yes, of course. And that is the angle. They have demonized the National Cathedral. Now they have extended it to the men of God.
They have demonized?
Absolutely. From the way they are talking, from day one, the way the NDC have projected themselves, demonize the National Cathedral, let alone now they are picking on men of God who are serving on the board. And again, I'm told reliably that at one time at their steering committee meeting,
you mean the cathedral?
The cathedral. Oh. I'm told that this payment to the contractor was due for the work that the contractor has done, and that they need for them to make payment to this contractor. Unfortunately, they were expecting money for the controller and accountant general department, and the money was delaying. So a question was put before the members, and Basit Tale was saying that members of the trustees are not aware. The trustees forms part of the what they call it, the steering committee. That is where the day-to-day decision of the running of
between the administration and the trustees.
Absolutely. Okay. So the decision was taken. Who can assist to raise some money to be able to pay for the contractor? And willingly Kusi Boateng or Mr. Jemfi, Edu Jemfi.
Let me stop you there. It's not that I'm cutting you, but you have been a deputy minister before. You've also run private business because you've also interacted because you've been a strong union leader. I've known you within the industrial enclave of our country, negotiating on behalf of workers, etc. You've also been a member of parliament. You've been in committees, you've consulted widely with corporate bodies, etc. But with a state project and institution that deals with state bodies, that does the advancement of the allocations or the funding, is it normal that at so-called committee meetings, board members or whatever, trustees, they just voluntarily say that I want to give out money for a project that is state-owned?
Is it wrong if you are in a group and the group needs an assistance?
This is not just a group, this is a national group.
No, I agree. There is a communication between the National Cathedral that wrote formally to GNS Talent
But I'm asking,
Center.
why should they do that?
But I'm saying that there's a need for them to pay the contractor because he has worked.
Well, that is true.
And the prices of raw materials and other things are going up. And as for the contractors, when they work and they raise their certificate, you have to pay them. So clearly, this issue came to the table as one of the agenda for discussion. And the question was put, where do you think we can get some funding? Because we are waiting for money from the controller to come before we can extend it to the contractor. So if anybody can assist us to raise some soft loan, and loan free, so that we can pay to this contractor, where has he faulted? Clearly for me, I don't see the area of corruption here.
So you think Mr. Blackwell and the NDC are on to something?
I know the NDC, I know you, and I know the NDC and Pastor Tale. They are in for mischief. Or they want to give Kusi a bad name, dog with a bad name and hang it. So the fact that the Kusi obliged to the request for the loan that he gave to the National Cathedral, it was paid into the account. Then when the money was paid finally to the National Cathedral, then they refunded the money to him. Where is the area of corruption? Where has he faulted?
No fault at all.
Oh, that is the question I'm asking.
No problem.
I don't see any problem here.
No.
Because let me read the communication for your viewers to understand what
communication?
We mean. This is from the National Cathedral.
But we know about that communication.
You know of this communication?
Yes.
So
I want to go to Mr. Abdullahi. You end for me.
Oh, he had the time to speak?
No.
He went all over the place talking and talking and talking.
Mr. Glover, you've spoken for more than 10 minutes.
Please,
now.
did you hear yourself? Did you time yourself?
More than 10 minutes.
No. Let's please end for me.
So clearly, even though you have seen this, let me also read this, because I'm doing my presentation for you to know that there's nothing corrupt.
So you can't read all. Oh.
I can read, please, briefly. It is dated 26th of August 2021, and you are addressed to the director, JNX Talent Center Limited, Accra, dear director. Loan to pay contractors for the National Cathedral of Ghana. The Board of Trustees of National Cathedral.
So you can't read all.
Please.
Only 2 paragraphs and then you read.
It is
we know about this.
important that
Let's go, continue.
we allow the viewers to know. The NDC is painting Kusi Boateng so bad, so negative in the eyes. In the eyes of the public, they are judging him already that he has corrupted himself. And this is what the letter that was wrote from National Cathedral to JNS to assist them with a soft loan. And quickly he obliged and wired the money into the account of the National Cathedral. Then when the controller money was due, they brought it back into National Cathedral. Then they paid to him. So what is the problem here?
Okay. Mr. Justice Abdullahi.
Yes, Roland.
The case that is being referred to, the Supreme Court case, I'm not too sure whether you're privy to that case, but the issue about within law having double identities, which brings about customary law and how the Constitution in that Article 11 within common law also grants us that. But I know that as far as customary law is concerned, there has to be a backing statute for it, for specific related sections of customary law. So I don't know whether because I'm called Eko Roland or Koku Roland, for example, and then I'm known in public life as Roland Walker, I can go about having double national identities for which I use, or rather, I swear an affidavit legally that then makes my public name change to the other, for which I can use. So double use of public names, because when you are doing the change of names, within that, you say that all documents bearing your previous name are valid. But where they are used concurrently, is that normal?
So, Roland, it's indeed normal for any Ghanaian to have multiple names. Please, not multiple identities. Though. Take the difference.
Please explain the difference.
So that's where I'm coming. So it is normal for you to be called Koku Roland at home. It is indeed normal to be called by the person that you were named after at home, which is very, very common. It is common to be called all kinds of names based on the peculiarities, not just of your culture, but also of the way your parents, possibly your parents could have named you Koku Roland, but they admired someone else's lifestyle, conduct, or anything else that so much that They prefer even calling you by his name. And sometimes you even develop names as you grow up from within your community. It doesn't become necessarily part of your official name, but somehow you adopt it. And then, as my senior colleagues have said, it is also possible that indeed, for Christians in particular, your baptismal name may be radically different from your local name. But notwithstanding all these, you will never find all these different variations of names, sometimes completely worlds apart, on your official documentations. Your birth certificate in particular would have that official name that you were supposed to have, notwithstanding the names that you are called at home. So you may probably never find anybody calling you with the name you're called at home on your official documentations, i.e. birth certificate. Now remember, it is the birth certificate that you would use to acquire all other nationally recognized identities, whether passport, whether voter ID card, and whether now Ghana card. All these rely principally on your birth certificate. Of course, there is no law barring anyone from changing his official name. But if you have not changed your official name and you are still using the official name as indicated on your birth certificate, then you are expected to have only that one on all your nationally recognized ID cards. So it is inconceivable that you are officially known as Roland Walker, but you still have ID cards bearing Koku Roland. That is your domestic name, if you want to call it so. Or Koku, any other, Koku Abdullahi, which is the name you are called back at home. Now, the moment you have that name on all official documents and your official name on all other official identities, clearly there's a criminal element involved because you couldn't have obtained double identities. That is where identity comes. The identity is your recognized, legally recognized details of your personality as known and recognized by the law. And this is what the nation knows you to be, notwithstanding what other names, all the other names that you're known to be back at home or even back in school, which may not be your official name. Official name in school may probably be Roland Walker, but your colleagues would prefer calling you by the name that they adopt you with. It is still your identity, except that, in fact, it may be your name, but it's not an officially recognized one. And so if you have the officially recognized name, tallying with your identity, and you have other names also having other identities, i.e., so the Koku Roland has passports, it has birth cert, it has all other details. The two are completely worlds apart. The two are different people. They refer to different people, notwithstanding the fact that they are the same pictures and the same other biometric details. They cannot be the same person. Particularly in this particular case where we hear that even dates of birth are different. Then we are talking completely about two different personalities. They cannot be one and the same. Now, the moment you enter into that area, criminality gets involved. And automatically, if you have birth cert, so clearly you couldn't have obtained two different passports with that different birth cert.
All right. So let me ask you a scenario. For example,
if you say on one passport that you were born in 1971 as Edu Jemfi, and the other passport says that you are 1977 as Kusi Boateng, the two are not one and the same, notwithstanding the fact that the pictures and other biometric details are the same. And so it is inconceivable for you to convince anyone that these two persons, because they bear the same pictures, are the same persons, and so should be treated, or in fact should be let go simply because he admits that he's the same person. In fact, the moment you admit that you are one and the same person, it is actually the reason why you ought to be investigated and possibly prosecuted. Because you can never have different identities as recognized in law.
Now, there's a scenario, it's not even a scenario, it's a fact, that a driver's license is bearing Victor Kusi Boateng. And if we know that by the processes and procedures of acquiring a driver's license, you use another identity. Going by the name Victor Kusi Boateng, it presupposes that the identity that was used or the document that was used in procuring the driver's license bore the name Victor Kusi Boateng. Herein also, alongside, there is other documentation, including a passport, which indicate that within that same period of the acquisition of the driver's license, there was also a possession of a man who has the same picture as the man Victor Kusi Boateng of that driver's license with a passport bearing the name Kwabena Edu Jemfi. It's same period. How do we explain that? And within law, how can that sort of two multiple identification exists? And then using those multiple identities to undertake transactions, even with public institutions, legally.
So this is exactly where I was getting to. That once the person, so clearly meaning that this person has the fundamental forms of acquiring these documents. So it means that most likely he has multiple birth sets.
And they all have
Most
different
likely has multiple birth sets.
they all have different
Very
birthdays.
different names. So which is why it can never be the same one and the same person. That is where the criminal intent comes in. There is clearly an intent to defraud. At the moment you decide to have multiple identification, you have an intent to defraud the state somehow, some way. And it is the reason why I invited last night, when I had an opportunity to speak on this matter, the Ministry of Interior to be involved in this, to be interested in this matter. The Attorney General must be interested in, the police must be interested in this, because it may be difficult for the Reverend and his family at this moment, but we need to understand how he succeeded, notwithstanding the existence of his biometric details in the DVLS system, in the passport office, how he still managed to acquire double passports bearing different names, different dates of birth, and different, in fact, literally different personalities, with different personalities. We need to be able to understand how that happened. We understand that our systems are porous, but when a person succeeds in breaching that system, we need to be able to find means of addressing that. And one of the means in addressing that is to invite the person, indeed those who witness for him, and those who, the lawyers or other recognized persons who signed guaranteeing for him. We need to be able to get these people, understand their mindset, know the basis for which they are vouched for this man. And we need to know why this man intended and succeeded in obtaining different passports within the same space of time, and for what purpose. Now, having identified that, then we can go into how to ensure that the system is protected from issuing multiple details, identities to persons of that nature, or indeed from all other Ghanaians. Because this is a breach. It's a breach of our security system. It's a breach of law, and indeed, being a breach must be criminally punished after investigation if he is found culpable. Because you cannot, in any shred of imagination, say that simply because in your culture you are allowed to have multiple names, so you can also have multiple identities walking around. So how do we refer to you? How does the state recognize you? The state only has one recognition for you. And that recognition is the only one that can be attributed to you officially. Unofficially, you can be whoever you wish to be. That we recognize, we accept. But officially, the state can only know you by one identity. And that identity, at this moment, we are unable to determine.
All right. Lawyer, I want to go for a break, but just use 1 minute to answer this for me. I think by our custom, you bear the name. If you bear the name locally, Kwabena Frimpong, Koku Roland. Now, if I want to have, I can use that Koku Roland to have an identity nationally. If I want to bear another identity of another formal name beyond my local name, can I keep my current identity card or identifiable document that is also of a national nature, and then go and do another procurement of my new name I want to adopt. That's my formal name, whilst keeping the old one, or there's a nullity to the old one, and then there's an activation of a new one.
At all material times, you must have a single identity, Roland. At all material times. The moment you decide to add on to your name, subtract from your name, abridge your name, and in any other way reform your name, it must be officially known and it must be officially communicated. Now, the moment you do that, it operates to delete the previous one. And so whether you go to the National ID's office or even Passport office, they have a system to accommodate that. And so if you're, in filing for a passport, during the application process, you have previous names existing on the form that you are supposed to enter.
I remember, yes.
It may not necessarily reflect on your passport, but it is for the state to recognize that you were indeed known by this previous name. And so we are dealing with one and the same person. This is the intent, not because we want to attack you or we want to in any way investigate your past, but because the system needs to recognize that it is the same personality we are dealing with. And it's the same when you go to the National ID's office. Indeed, it is the process, if you remember, the Aisha 1, this makes makes a lot of practical sense. That's the same process that Aisha 1 attempted to adopt when he went to the northern region to register for a new ID. This was the process that he attempted to adopt, to modify his name and obtain a new ID, because that's the only circumstance you can have a new ID. And that would operate to cancel or revoke any other ID card that you have. That tells you that you can, at every material time, have only one official identity as an individual.
All right. Please hold your horse. I know that you have a lot of information in terms of interpretation of the law on this, but as far as this is related.
And if I'm to, sorry, Roland, to contribute a little to what, I think, who said it? I think a case was quoted. I'm not sure who mentioned the case.
Yes.
Now,
Honorable Titus Glover did the
quoting. Thank you. What Honorable said, no one is taking that away from the Supreme Court or any other court, that you can buy property in multiple names. But if you do that, also recognize that in your process, in your bid to register that document, if it is a landed property, for instance, or even if it is, even if it is a vehicle, you need that your official ID card to recognize it. And because you have only one official ID card to register that document, that property, under no circumstance can you register it in your local name or in your other names that is not recognized on your document or on your ID card.
All right. Okay. So you are saying that within the social circles, usage is accepted, but for public purposes, it has to be national.
For official purposes, you may not be able to use it.
Okay. All right. And I wanted to go to Titus. So hold. Oh, no, I know it's his turn, but
it's my turn.
Yes, I know. Okay. I know. If you look at, because he's speaking. Oh, Basintale, relax. We are.
I'm getting a bit confused here.
You are confused, eh? Or you want to clarify?
Why? Because if I heard what counsel said, that he has
he's creating scenarios.
Has he got two different birth certificates?
Okay, based on
different birth certificates.
Okay, so
different date of birth.
Okay, so based on what we have by way of the identifications, there's a point in time there existed a national identification document of a passport, and at the same time there existed a driver's license of that nature, but bearing different names, same photo, different names. And we know that all those institutions that undertake the implementation or processing of those documents take your biometric features.
Absolutely.
So we cannot have Roland Walker going to be identified differently if it's not present.
Because, for example, if you want to change from identity A to identity B, with your affidavit, you need to state the old name that you have in the affidavit. Then you go further and gazetted. Now, when you go to the passport office and they are doing the capturing with your fingerprint, it's obvious and it's automatic that if you have a passport in the old name, immediately you put your finger, it will pop up.
True.
Am I lying?
True.
It will pop up.
True.
So the identity before you, if the same person in that system of the passport office, it will show. So I'm a bit confused here as to how the old name
existed by side,
and how it managed.
It actually is not an old name.
So
It's
it's
an
a
existing
bit
name.
murky, you know. It's a bit murky.
All right.
And for me, what I can say is that Shraj will assist us to unearth how these multiple identities
are existing
were
at the
acquired.
same time. Okay.
Do you understand? So I will pause here and wait for the outcome of Shraj. I'll be able to.
That's good reason. That's good reason. You wanted to say something for go for a break. Just short. I'll give you only 2 minutes.
No,
sir.
I'm partly impressed with the new position of Mr. Titus Glover.
No, he hasn't taken a new position.
No, there's a new position.
No,
I mean, at first he called the NDC reckless and only trying to tarnish the image of the Reverend Kusi Boateng. But clearly, from all indications, he subscribes to the investigation that's going to be conducted on the person.
He hasn't
of
said the
Mr.
investigation shouldn't go on.
And that's what I'm saying. From all indications, he now subscribes. And so the name reckless and attempting to soil the image of Reverend Kusi Boateng or whoever we are discussing on this platform has been erased. But critically, let me make things clearer. You see, the fact that you have a good reputation or you've lived, as a good person, does not mean that at any point in time, if you engage in any act of criminology, you cannot be exposed.
Who determines what is criminology?
The courts, and it will be done that.
Okay.
But based on the facts available, he made reference to.
We're all speaking to the facts available.
Absolutely. Based on the facts available, one, in 2010, when he was registering for the DVA, the vehicle license, he was Victor Kusi Boateng. And at that time, he was 51 years. In 2016, when he was acquiring an ordinary passport, he became Kobna Edujemfi. And at that time, he became 53 years. Then in 2021, when he was acquiring a diplomatic passport, he went back to becoming Victor Kusi Boateng. And he was still aged 53 years. These are 3 identities. In 2010, a name with 51 years. In 2016, different name with 53 years. In 2021, the old name with the new age. 3 different identities. Number 2, Mr. Glover, you know that it is a crime in this country to own 2 10 numbers, tax identification numbers. Mr. Kusi Boateng, in other parts of this country known as Kobna Edujemfi, owns 2 different tax identification numbers in this country, which is, of course, a crime to the laws of this country. Number 3, if you critically observe his travel details, and I stated that emphatically here, in the year 2021, in August, he had traveled to Dubai on the ordinary passport.
Which bears...
That bears the name Kobna Edujemfi. He returned and was going back in November 2021. Then he went with Reverend Victor Kusi Boateng. That was a diplomatic passport. So in one, he was Kobna Edujemfi, age 51, and he traveled again with Reverend Kusi Boateng of age 53. If this is not a clear case of...
Maybe it's not him.
Dissociative identity disorder, then what else are we debating on this platform? And so you see, my very senior brother, Mr. Glover, also made reference to the fact that whatever decision was taken with regards to that payment, that loan that was given from JNS to the National Cathedral Secretariat had been discussed at a board meeting. Let me draw your attention to the fact that, 1, Mr. Heward-Mills resigned in August 2022. This loan that was given to the National Secretariat was facilitated in August 2021. 1 clear year from the resignation of Mr. Heward-Mills. Yet a member, not just a member, a senior member of the board said he knew nothing about whatever financial...
who is that senior member?
Mr. Reverend Heward-Mills. He's a senior member.
The transaction was in August...
It was in August 2021. And he resigned in August 2022, 1 clear year from when the transaction was processed. And he, being a member of the board, has stated clearly that he knew nothing about that transaction that had
Well, in that
taken
same
place
statement, he also
in-
says
in
that the number of activities that he was not aware of.
a lot more. I
He
can
says
name them.
trustees are not aware.
I'm not aware. So clearly, Mr. Glover, let me draw your attention to the fact that
Basically,
you see,
Tali,
what-
he wants
the
to make an
greatest-
interjection.
Okay.
I
Tali.
allow that.
Normally, meetings are conveyed on invitation formally for members to attend.
Yes, true.
And if Doug Heward-Mills is saying that he's not privy to this information, when the invitation was
He
extended,
didn't
was
say
he
new. He
present?
said trustees.
Trustees. You know,
Okay.
He
Trustees
said
are
that
not
he has
informed.
attended every single meeting of the board of trustees, via Zoom
Basintali, relax,
and physically.
relax.
and
Basintali.
this discussion was not tabled
way you are doing it.
before the board of trustees for their input and consideration.
He knows nothing about it.
No, he didn't say to this particular. He says that the trustees have not been made aware of transactions.
All
here.
financial transactions.
So you are say by
There's a
implication.
I mean, there's no other financial decision that will be taken
But this is
higher
serious-
than a
serious-
decision where a private individual, and if you listen to Mr. Glover very well, he said
My name is Titus Glover.
Mr. Titus Glover very well. He indicated that on the meeting they were looking for someone who could loan money to the secretariat.
And I've asked
then-
the question whether it is for
He said
corporate
that-
governance purposes.
I'm
I'll ask that.
I mean,
I'm going for a
it's
break.
wrong.
Look, we haven't finished that. We haven't finished
Yeah, I
anything
had
around
more-
this.
I had more to-
So
Well, I took a lot of my time.
So I took your time.
Yes, I mean,
For Mr. Titus.
Mr. Titus
No,
to come
because
in.
he needed to clarify things.
but I needed to explain things.
And then also for all the explanation that Basintali will have to do, and then also the clarifications that will have to be done by Mr. Titus Glover, the former member of Parliament, whatever, Deputy Transport Minister, former. I want to ask Mr. Justice Abdullahi that because he's very much well versed in things of corporate governance within public sector agencies, whether it's normal that at a board meeting, a board setting, you take a decision and one board member decides that I can use my private money to offset debt or even loan to a public project that by implication is a public agency. We'll take a break. When we come back, please don't go. We'll stay on this. Now, we have to go back to Justice Abdullahi. Mr. Abdullahi, if now we take a look at the narrative that at a meeting, the Cathedral project and its administrators and assigns were still constrained by funding, that, well, at a meeting where they needed some payments for contractors, a member either of the trustee or the board or for that meeting volunteered to contact an entity to lend money to the project. Within the structure of the way you situate the Cathedral project and then the giving of the money, and within corporate governance purposes or public corporate governance purposes, is it appropriate?
I mean, is it appropriate? Yes, it is appropriate. Should it be avoided? I would always recommend that it's avoided.
Why?
I would always recommend that a party involved in any corporate governance issues, particularly when it has to do with the state, must do everything to avoid having any personal transaction with the entity. The principle has always been on an arm's length basis. That has always been the principle. Once the transaction is seen to be on the basis of arm's length and there's transparency and particularly full disclosure, then it is allowed to go on. These are the guiding principles so that no one sees any
Well, we seem to have.
This is what I go through my house.
Sometimes the internet goes off.
So Roland, this matter, this is the first phase of the entire issue surrounding Reverend Kusi Boateng. That's got to do with the dissociative identity disorder. The second point has got to do with the conflict of interest part of this entire negotiation.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
JNS.
You mean the lending of the money?
No, of course, JNS has its directors as one Eshon, the other Kobna Edu Jemfi, and the third party. Now, two of these people of this company, one is a member of the board of trustees of the National Cathedral. The other is his own junior pastor of one of his branch churches. Then, in a very closed negotiation, where one member of the board is even saying that they are not privy to whatever agreement had taken place in this context, you decide to award whatever, even if it were a loan, which is yet to be, clarified. You decide to make payment to your own company, being a member of this board of trustees. So, Roland, you are seated here, and I'm glad that Mr. Titus Glover has been a deputy minister and is very privy to the law surrounding conflict of interest.
It hasn't been ascertained.
So I'm explaining it so that you understand the concept of whatever took place.
Yeah,
so, payment has been made to his own company to a tune of $2.6 million. And then, upon further checks, this company that was incorporated in 2021
allegedly.
Absolutely had about 3.6 million transferred from the Controller and Accountant General's Department into the account before this forward transfer to the National Cathedral Secretariat, as they are purporting. But with 3.6 million from Controller and Accountant General, nothing has been indicated to show whatever works this company, JNS, had executed for the government of the day. Because, you would have to go through the PPA, the Public Procurement Authority, you would have to bring it to Parliament. And so whatever transaction or negotiations had taken place between the Controller and Accountant General's Departments and JNS Skills and Talents Company should have been made transparent so that people know whatever agreement had taken place before such a payment has been done. So that particular matter too is subject to investigations and will surely be investigated to ascertain how 3.6 was forwarded from the Controller and Accountant General's Department to 3.5, to the JNS account, and how that onward transfer was made to the National Cathedral Secretariat without recourse to the Board of Trustees. That is the second avenue. The third part has to do with the entire National Cathedral project in perspective. And I have repeated that in terms of priority, Roland, there are over 200 contractors who have stopped working on our roads, have stopped working on schools, have stopped working on bridges, and whatever contracts have been allocated to them. All because the government of the day has said they are running out of funds and are unable to pay all these contractors. I know a contractor who is struggling to get payment for a certificate of just 1 million Ghana cedis. The government has refused to pay him because the government says they are cash strapped. Yet, same government has been able to dole out over $130 million to an architect of a project, all in the name of setting up a national cathedral. I am aware that this morning, over 18 NAPCO trainees have petitioned the government for lack of payments for whatever works they had carried out. Over 800, sorry. And the government of the day has repeatedly stated that they will not pay them because they don't have finances to cater for them. Yet, the government is looking at raising $400 million to set up a cathedral. Look, President Mahama got a tune of 89 million euros. Instead of setting up a project that is not of priority to the nation at that particular time, he decided to set up 5 polyclinics. Today, you know how many lives the Bole Bamboy 35-bed polyclinic has saved? You know how many lives the Solar 60-bed polyclinic has saved? You know how many beds the 85-bed Bipe District Hospital has saved?
All in the name the president is also, through his government, undertaking 111 hospitals. We have regional hospitals, district hospitals.
Where? 111.
They are ongoing.
Where?
I know.
Where?
I know one ongoing. Where? At the Tema General Hospital.
Tema General Hospital.
Yes.
An expansion project.
No, it's a new project.
Is it going to get the whole time?
Where?
Yeah.
I have stated that for 6 years in office, you've not been able to complete a single project of yours. And then if you say ongoing where?
That's not true. And number of schools also have been built. I'm built
and completed.
I think that what we're doing is
completed and
yes. They are model schools. You haven't seen the project.
Mention one.
Mention one. Please.
No,
when you have time.
But Mr. Glover,
you want to take the whole show?
Basentali, relax.
But this is time from the host, Mr.
No,
Glover.
but please.
No. Basentali,
if you have time,
he's taking all the time.
No, please. Please.
What is this?
They have given you your time.
You are there and he's taking all the time.
No, he's not.
I mean, of importance to the citizens of this country.
So,
and when I use my time to you don't want me to speak.
Mr. Titus Glover,
I mean, we don't have to engage in this.
The question now is,
with the greatest of respect,
at what point in time do we have to determine that this project is of national value and perhaps look at the current exigencies that are happening within the economic space? We've gone to the IMF and say maybe we have to put a hold on the projects and then look at how we need to prioritize certain actions.
I think that from the context of this National Cathedral issue, a lot of words and statements have been
Banded
made
around, yeah,
against it and all that. And the fact that His Excellency the President said, look, this is something I want to do to glorify God. And people have their own interpretation to it. That is their own wahala. That is their own problem. And for that matter, I can say that now that the minority has blocked the funding in the 2023 appropriation, I'm told that that 80 million has been shared between some ministries, roads, and I think communication or something, so that all these contractors who have worked and are waiting their payment and all that, we can pay these contractors and they can go back to the road and continue the work that they are doing. Under President Akufo-Addo, a lot has been done in terms of infrastructure. I'm surprised that Basintale is going his normal NDC propaganda and all the things that you want to say. When you go to Ketu North, there's an hospital that has been built there. When the COVID came, an hospital was built, spread all over the places. Even Eurojet project that was started under President Kufuor, continued by Mills, continued by ex-President Mahama, were completed. These are all state-funded loans that were used. And even the Eastern Regional, what they call it, hospital at, I've forgotten the place after Koforidua. It's almost there. You just mentioned Temajina Hospital. I was in the 7th Parliament when the loan was procured from Temajina Hospital and the Central Medical Stores. Go and see what is being done. At the end of the period of 2024, all these projects under President Akufo-Addo will come to appreciable level that will be commissioned and to the good of our people. So for me, they can do whatever they want to say in terms of the recommendations against the MPP government. But going forward, this money of 2.6 million, I'm now hearing the 3.6 for the first time. Yeah. Because based on 3.5, what I'm hearing is the 2.6.
Yeah, it's 2.6 that was made, but the Controller and Accountant General, I think, paid or forwarded monies also to the company, JNS. And then also the Cathedral was giving that...
2.6.
Yes.
I need to have that paper trail.
Yeah, it's available.
You know, I need to have that paper trail. What necessitated the Controller to lodge or pay the money?
So that's where the question
is. You know, what did he do for the Controller to pay directly into JNS? I need to know.
On that receipt.
Because all along...
They were stated as it's payment for parastatals.
You know, all along, the impression that I have is that the soft loan that they are looking for, because in acquisition of a loan, you look at time, you look at the interest, you know, and I'm happy my good friend Jazabla is saying that so long as there is transparency and Kusi did not benefit from the loan that he procured to the National Cathedral. So long as there is transparency in the transaction, they made an application, kindly assist us. There's no interest on that was paid out to the National Cathedral. For me, I have no problem over there. But Basintale is saying that the other members of the board of the GNS, I don't know where they had that information for that they contacted for them to say that they disagree to what Kusi has done to allow money to be for the company accounts. Now you are saying that you contacted one is a junior pastor in the church and one is something.
The board of directors of GNS.
So you have
but it's available.
You call them to find and they told you that they are not aware of that.
Mr. Abdullah, please the two of you. Hey, please, Mr. Basintale, Mr. Mr. Justice Abdullah.
Yes, Roland.
Yes, that thing, that decision about, you know, entities that have board members and the board members, because those public entities or public quasi-project entities are in need of cash. And so those board members, because they have, can just decide to off-lend. Is that appropriate? If it's appropriate, then what is right or wrong about it, the action?
So that's what I was saying earlier, that it is never some conduct that I would recommend under any circumstance.
Why?
I would never recommend it because of the peculiar natures of dealing with public institutions and public entities. You are likely to find yourself answering questions to corruption and handling, among other things. And so it is the reason why, as I was saying, the corporate governance structures are structured such that at every point in time, transparency and arm's length principle must be applied in determining whether or not some perception of underhandling or corruption or favoritism or bias had taken place. And so to avoid that, it is always better to completely avoid having anything doing with the transaction. So if it is a board decision, the best option is to fully disclose your involvement or interest in whatever transaction is being discussed, and wash your hands off, step back, allow the board to take a decision. Now, you don't sit in that same meeting expecting that your colleagues would be, right with you in the meeting, would be that objective in making a decision in your favor, against you in particular. And so it's always better to avoid these transactions or ensure that at every moment you have very little engagement in that particular decision-making processes. Now, outside of this, if no iota or scintilla of corruption, underhandling, biasness could be seen, then it's likely to be allowed to stand. Otherwise, you're likely to lose whatever investment or transaction that you entered into, and possibly be saddled with all these allegations of corruption, among other things. Okay. And so, yes, so at every material time, my recommendation is always avoid it as much as possible.
Okay.
If you can't, follow these principles.
All right. I also will have to follow through with some bit of information that I also picked up. And within the Public Financial Management Act of Act 921, there's every indication about what needs to be done in terms of the actions if public entities want to borrow from financial institutions. Now you go to section 63 of the Public Financial Management Act. It's clearly indicated as 63, government borrowing from banks and other financial institutions by means of a loan agreement shall A, be on the terms and conditions approved by Parliament, B, subject to subsections 2 and 4 of section 60, be based on the annual borrowing and recovery plan, and for other market transactions, that will be within the public sphere, the private sphere, subject to subsection 2, the minister may, in accordance with the debt management objectives and the medium-term debt management strategy, undertake other market transactions, including entering into financial swaps and other derivative transactions on behalf of government for the purpose of managing the risks of government and the various financial transactions, offering buybacks and exchanges of government debt securities, and offering early repayment of loans before the date of maturity of loans. So these are in transactions. So then the questions will be the Cathedral project and whose ministry it is, if it's with the presidency, then under, within the Public Financial Management Act, how do we undertake such borrowings? Because these are on lending from the private sector to them. And these are questions. Well, gentlemen, we have to wrap up. Just 30 seconds before we wrap up.
Oh, but since that the matter is now before
the
Shraj, I think that we'll buy our time, and Kusibu has issued a statement that he will fully comply with the invitation of Shraj, and they will go there and battle it out and see the issues raised by Okudzeto Ablakwa. So for me, I'll patiently wait and see the outcome of this issue is going to be.
Oh, Roland, I'm impressed that at least clarity is being brought to this particular matter. And we've had very renowned and revered men of God who were part of this board now resigning, all because they want to dissociate themselves from what has now become a hub of corruption and a hub of wastage of the taxpayers' scarce and limited resources, and also what they feel has no benefit to the public interest of this country. And so we would see more of that in the coming days. There will be more of exposés, but I believe strongly that one of them will surely be used as a scapegoat in this matter, and this is one of such issues that will be done. So all we are saying is that, look, we will get to the bottom of this matter, no matter how long it takes. We would make sure that people are exposed and people are brought to book. And whatever corruption, corrupt practice, this whole idea of a national cathedral was set to push, whatever corrupt agenda would definitely be brought to bear. And the people of this country, at least, would get to understand that the government of the day clearly has nothing more to offer for the people of this country. The government of the day has decided to squeeze our limited resources we have on board. And surely there would be a government that will come on board to ensure
it looks like within the remit of the law, because this case is before the Shraj, there's a lot, of course, to talk about outside by way of the discussions, but your expectations of Shraj will be?
Roland, I actually do not expect much from Shraj beyond the revelations that may come along with this. And that is why I actually expect that the Office of the Special Prosecutor rather should rope itself into this whole discussions. And because of the possibility of corruption, there is identity fraud issues, all of that coming to fold. And because this person is politically exposed, I do not think that Shraj's findings, if it is adverse, may help us in inflicting the appropriate punishment, if there is any. And so that is where OSP becomes a more relevant tool to use, because it can prosecute criminally and obtain for the people of Ghana, if there is any conviction, the most appropriate remedies. And so I commend the Okudzeto and his team for what they've done, because I think we've had enough of the rhetorics in the air and constant accusations and counter accusations. I do not think that helps anyone. Once you think that you have concrete information about somebody's ill involvement in any public funding, the most appropriate thing is to report the person to the appropriate authorities and follow up. Let's ensure that we talk the walk and get the best out of what we expect from our system. And it is for one of the reasons why I commend the establishment of the Office of Special Prosecutions, because Shraj, good as it may be, is a bit handicapped in the way they go about their things. One has to literally invoke their jurisdiction before they can even take up any matter. And for me, that is a huge limitation on Shraj. That is where the strength of OSP comes in. They do not need anyone. And we have a fantastic character by Kitty Jardine. I mean, fantastic lawyer. And I expect that he brings his expertise to bear on some of these issues and take it up for our collective benefit.
All right, so Justice Abdullahi is a legal practitioner and also with the law faculty. Basintali is trying to say that the OSP is complaining that he's been funded. How do you draw those conclusions? And then also
involving
Daniel Ni,
Mr. Glover,
Mr. Glover.
No, Mr. Glover,
for you to say that
with the greatest of respect.
He's taking the case of
please.
What is this?
Mr. Glover,
former deputy minister of transport and also
Mr. Glover, please.
Tema East
losing debate tactics, please.
parliamentary.
Oh,
is that what
no, let's stop this. It won't help. It won't help. If the OSP is choking because Akufo-Addo,
I'm waiting for you. Please stop. The two of you.
If the OSP is choking because Akufo-Addo has decided to clear everybody, and we state it here, is that disrespect? If he doesn't want anyone to be suspecting, he should stop clearing corrupt practices.
We're taking a break. We'll be right back. I love this.
Community in Ghana to continue making contributions.